Venezuela announced a massive mobilization of its military forces as the U.S. continues its military buildup in the Caribbean. The announcement comes in the wake of U.S. strikes that have targeted at least 20 vessels in the waters around Latin America, killing dozens of people. The Trump administration has said the strikes are part of an effort to combat drug trafficking, but have so far released limited details. And the U.S. is sending more resources to the region. The USS Gerald Ford, America's largest warship, crossed into the U.S. Southern Command's area of responsibility, which includes the Caribbean. CBS News senior national security correspondent Charlie D'Agata joins us for more. Charlie, what exactly does Venezuela's mobilization look like?
Yeah, well, this came from the defense minister in Venezuela, who said that he had ordered up 200,000 troops, actually a little bit more than that. And that means the ground forces in Venezuela, but also air defense systems, whatever maritime forces that they have, which is not substantial, but essentially everything that they've got in preparation for a U.S. invasion or to defend against U.S. airstrikes. And there is something to consider if you are going to launch airstrikes in Venezuela. The first thing you're going to want to do is to suppress their air defense systems. And they do have Russian-supplied air defenses, S-300s, which are fully capable of taking down aircraft. So those things have been mobilized. In addition to that, they're going to mobilize guerrilla forces, because there are militias, as we're all aware, inside Venezuela that can also do the work of the government when ordered to do so. So that is the announcement that was made, and the exercises are already underway. That was announced yesterday, so they're happening now.
So what does the Ford bring that was not already there?
A lot. What the order of the mission right now is drug interdiction, and we've been seeing strikes probably from Reaper drones, probably from some of the aircraft, AC-130 gunships, taking out some of those fast boats. What they're sending when you send the Ford is 4 squadrons, 48 F-18 fighter jets, and all of the support aircraft to go with them, wow, including jammers. So this is the type of thing that if you were to launch airstrikes in a country, say like against the Houthis, you would send a carrier, and the carrier would do the lion's share of the work. So this is not the kind of military package that you would see in a drug interdiction operation. This is something you would see as a flex, but it's about optics as much as anything else. And as has been said with the Navy and pretty much everybody around the world, there is no single flex like a United States aircraft carrier. And as you said, this is the largest and most advanced aircraft carrier in the world. And we also have to mention the destroyers that are going with it. 3 more inside that flotilla. There's 7 or 8 warships already there, capable of mounting or launching Tomahawk missiles. So you're talking about a massive military package of a kind that hasn't been seen there in decades.
At the same time, the UK and Colombia have now stopped sharing some intelligence with the U.S. over concerns about the legality of these strikes. What can you tell us?
Yeah, well, first of all, Secretary of State Marco Rubio said that this idea about the Brits not sharing intelligence is fake. In terms of the Colombians who have announced that they're no longer sharing intelligence with the United States, that actually could have a significant impact, because the United States is reliant to some degree on Colombian intelligence to stop drug runners from Colombia into Mexico and then to the United States.
Have you made up your mind on what you'd like to do for as far as action?
I sort of made up my mind, too. I mean, I can't tell you what it would be, but I sort of made it.
President Trump puts Venezuela on notice as the Pentagon launches Operation Southern Spear. This is now a named operation to target narco-terrorist networks across Latin America. Let's break it all down here at the Wall. About 25% of all deployed U.S. warships are now in the Caribbean with the arrival of USS Gerald Ford, the newest and largest warship in the U.S. Navy's inventory, joined by dozens of other warships, including guided missile destroyers, have a few guided missile cruisers in there, Lake Erie, USS Iwo Jima, an amphibious assault ship, of course, loaded out with 2,000 Marines in full combat load, all taking place, of course, just here off the coast of Venezuela. And don't forget, we have B-52 bombers from Barksdale Air Force Base in Louisiana. We have 5th-generation F-35 fighter jets in Roosevelt Roads, Puerto Rico over here. That's an old Navy base that was been shuttered for many years, now back. And, of course, all this to combat the narco-terrorists that have been smuggling drugs across the Caribbean. And there's been 20 strikes against these suspected drug smuggling vessels, killing dozens. And right here, you also see the Oilers have arrived here as well. Of course, when the USS Gerald Ford arrives, it's the newest aircraft carrier. You have to refuel that. Of course, it has 2 nuclear power plants on board that aircraft carrier, but you got to refuel the jet aircraft. And in addition to the bombers, of course, you have the Marines, you have the F-35s. We talked about that in Puerto Rico. Again, about a quarter of all U.S. Navy warships deployed in the world right now are here off the coast of Venezuela in the Caribbean, ready for any potential orders from the commander-in-chief to strike. And with that, let's bring in our guest, Rebecca Heinrichs, Hudson Institute Senior Fellow and Foreign Policy Expert, no stranger to the program. Good morning, Rebecca.
Good morning, Lucas. Good to see you.
Do you think regime change is possible in Venezuela? Something we've heard many questions asked to President Trump.
Well, I think that President Trump and Secretary of State Marco Rubio has been pretty clear that this is really to pressure the regime to stop sending drugs, that the Maduro regime is a narco-terrorist organization. It allows its territory to be used for the shipment of drugs, trafficking. And so that is the primary reason that has been given. But as you point out, Lucas, that's a lot of firepower in the region. And so I think really it's an enormous effort to pressure Maduro to stop this narco-terrorism. But also, I think it also is to perhaps incentivize some of the military around Maduro, potentially to pressure Maduro to leave, to maybe encourage Maduro to leave on his own. I'm very skeptical that he will. I'm also very skeptical, Lucas, that the United States is going to go forward with what would amount to the necessary force needed for regime change to something more peaceful in the region.
One of the things we talked about with all these warships in the Ford strike group, of course, the guided missile destroyers and some of the cruisers that are out there, of course, they're armed with dozens of Tomahawk cruise missiles. If President Trump were to order some kind of strikes on Venezuela, what would the target set look like, Rebecca? And should force be necessary, would you be recommending strikes against the Maduro regime inside Venezuela?
Well, President Trump's administration has been really pretty close, keeping its cards close to its vest about what some of the intelligence they have and what they're actually looking at inside Venezuela. So I wouldn't be able to give advice, but I would say that if there are strikes, I would speculate that those strikes would be against the cartels, drugs specifically, not targets that would threaten the Maduro regime proper. The reason for that, Lucas, is that the Maduro regime is obviously militarily inferior to the United States, but it's also backed by the Russians and the Chinese and the Cubans. And we learned this back in 2019 when the Russians sent forces into Venezuela to kind of back Maduro and to intimidate the United States. So I think it would be a mess for the United States to get involved in regime change specifically because it would take a lot of U.S. power to get opposition forces that we want, the pro-democracy people in power in Venezuela. So I think this is more intimidation, Lucas, and then also the strikes would be against the cartel organizations and the cocaine operations that is ongoing in Venezuela.
And one of the assets not listed on the board, of course, are Reaper drones. That's what's been carrying out the vast majority of those strikes on those drug boats. Let's look ahead, Rebecca, to this week when President Trump hosts the Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman. What are you looking to come out of these meetings?
Well, obviously, the big goal here would be is if you had progress towards Saudi normalization with Israel, adding the Saudi government to the Abraham Accords.
How likely is that to happen?
I think it's still not yet. I think it's still probably premature, but that's always the goal because of Saudi Arabia's significance in the Muslim world. Obviously, it's the home of Medina and Mecca, key holy sites for the Islamic community. And so to have that progress would be massive for greater stabilization in the Middle East. I think that this is going to be more United States collaborating with the Saudis militarily, greater integration, the weapon sales from the United States going to Saudi Arabia. And all of that would be good because we don't want the Saudis to be buying weapons from the Chinese. So we want to pull the Saudis more into our corner.
Quick yes or no, Rebecca, to put you on the spot. Should F-35 stealth fighter jets be sold to the Saudis?
I think it would be okay as long as the Israelis do not oppose. And the Israeli government said as long as normalization comes first, they would be comfortable with that sale.